Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Equipcast. My name is Jim Jansen, and I am your host. And I have a great conversation for you today. Today, I sat down with Archbishop J. Michael Miller and had a chance to about his book, The Holy See's Teaching on Catholic Schools. Archbishop Miller is the Archbishop of Vancouver, Canada, and he served on the Vatican Congregation for Catholic Education. He served as the secretary. And man, we have a great conversation. For you educators out there, he talked about the beauty of the vocation to be an educator and how it's not a cold profession. He spoke very honestly about the new vocabulary that's developing around encounter and friendship with Jesus. He talks about how Catholic schools' rediscovery of their Catholic identity is a place of hope and renewal. He talks about the role of parents and how we shouldn't speak about the parish in the school, but we should begin to speak and think of them as one. And he talks about Catholic worldview, how faith and reason are really an essential part of the Catholic identity, and that our Catholic identity goes much deeper than just 1 hour a week class and symbols. So anybody here who has a student in Catholic schools, you have worked, taught, maybe you're a product, you're going to love today's conversation. Take a listen.
Welcome to the Equipcast for the Archdiocese of Omaha. Designed to help leaders to transform their cultures, to embody the pastoral vision, to be one church, encountering Jesus, equipping disciples, and living mercy.
Archbishop Michael Miller, thank you for joining us on the Equipcast today. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks very much, Jim. It's a pleasure. Is Omaha cold? Are you in freezing temperature?
Well, so I can see snow, but I'm hesitant. For our listeners who don't know that you're in Vancouver, Canada, right. I don't know what the temperature is. I'll check here.
Ours is 7 degrees centigrade, which is probably about 44 or something.
Okay, you're warmer. We're just right at freezing. 32.
Right. Well, we have snow on our mountains, but we don't have any snow on the ground.
That's right.
We don't get snow.
Yeah, relatively temperate because of the coast, right?
Because of the coast, and we get rain.
Yes, that's right.
We're just like Seattle, which is just to the south of us. So
okay.
But it says on my thing, it says mostly cloudy, but there's a bit of sun. We had 2 days of rain, typical January weather.
That's great. We just had a big snowstorm come through here, and my kids were disappointed because what should have been a foot of snow turned into 3 inches with a little bit of rain. So
I see. So they didn't close the schools.
No, yeah, I'll tell them to be grateful. It's like you could be in Vancouver and it could rain all the time.
Yes, if you don't like rain, don't come.
Yeah. So Archbishop, but just a little bit about your background. I noticed that you are a member of the Congregation of St. Basil.
I am.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, but particularly I'm interested in the Congregation of St. Basil.
Right. We're often referred to as the Basilian Fathers. We were founded exactly 200 years ago. We just celebrated our bicentenary in France. It was a group of diocesan priests who, during the French Revolution, had continued kind of in secret what we would call now a minor seminary.
Yeah.
And they lived together at this time. After the freedom, with Napoleon, these guys decided that they wanted to do two things. They wanted to be priests, but they also wanted to teach and live together.
Ah, yeah.
And so they got an école secondaire, a secondary school in a town called Annonay. They directed it. It was a small group of people. Then in the early 1850s, one of their former students ended up being named the Archbishop of Toronto, which at that time was receiving lots of Irish immigrants. And we established there St. Michael's College School and eventually the University of St. Michael's College, both of which continue to this day. And then we expanded around the Great Lakes. We had for years a big high school in Rochester, Detroit, Gary, Indiana, and a large presence in Houston. We've had schools in other places as well, but it's really kind of Toronto and Houston were the original major places. I was in Houston, where we founded a boys' school in 1900 and a university in 1947.
Wow.
And a lot of missions, Hispanic serving missions sort of along the Gulf Coast. Now we have places in Latin America. Our vocations are coming mostly from Colombia and Mexico. But we were a teaching community. That was and I was in the prep school in Ottawa that was taught by the Brazilians. And in those days, they had co-institutional schools, which was, think of an L, one line, boys' school, the other line, girls' school, in the middle, chapel and gym, which we would share, and after-school activities.
That's great. I went to a Benedictine high school in Kansas that had a similar model. There was a girls' school.
But that is Benedictine College, is that?
Yes, Benedictine College. Yep, I graduated from there, met my wife there.
Did you have a philosophy teacher? What was his name? John Rebus?
John Rio. Yes, I did.
John Rio. He when I was in Houston, he has his degree from University of St. Thomas in Thomistic
Yes,
Studies.
that's right. I had he started a great books program there.
Right.
And much of my coming back to the faith, I would say my intellectual conversion came in the context of that great books course.
Wow. Yeah.
What a small world. That is fantastic.
The Catholic world is at a certain level fairly small.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit. I mean, my conversion was sparked in many ways by that content. I mean, I still remember St. Athanasius on the Incarnation and a number of these books that I remember reading them and having this very sinking feeling. We're like, oh no, this makes sense.
This is true. This is going to change.
And if it's true, this is going to change my weekend plans. Yeah. It was very, I'm grateful for it now, but at the time it was a real conversion experience. Tell us a little bit about your first encounter with Jesus.
Yeah, I saw that question and I was thinking that's the kind of question that we use all the time when we're talking about evangelization, and there's lots of testimonies and so on.
Yeah.
I was a kid in the 1950s. We did not talk that way.
Yeah.
Of course, an encounter with Jesus. We had a certain piety, which we would never have expressed in terms of, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus? That was considered a Protestant question, if it was a question at all.
Mm-hmm.
But people had devotional lives, like devotion to the Sacred Heart and so on. A lot of these things are obviously based on person-to-person engagement and colloquy. I didn't have a great conversion experience, so that when we go now to our ordination banquets and stuff where the young guys are able to tell their stories, I wouldn't have an interesting story. It was, Catholic kids in the 50s and 60s when I went into the seminary, it was so ordinary.
Yeah, it was a different culture. It wasn't as exceptional. Still generous.
It wasn't exceptional at all. When I was in the novitiate, we had 8 guys from the football team at Catholic Central in Detroit. I mean, it was it wasn't so the notion that I gave up a Wall Street possibility or I was a great attorney, none of that. It was I had been to a Catholic boys' school, saw the priest that I interacted with, of course, and we had for 4 years I had only one class 1 year that wasn't taught by a priest, and the sign on the going up the stairs said, there's a picture of they had a young priest at the time, and then it said, long hours, hard work, no pay. And underneath, Bazillion Fathers.
That's a great recruiting strategy.
So, yeah. And, we'd get a talk maybe once a year or something. Somebody would come around. And so it just developed in me that I certainly thought seriously about it in high school, but I went to college first and then entered during college at St. Mike's in Toronto, entered the novitiate. We were 42 guys.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, if we get 10, we're considered blessed.
Yeah. How do you, because again, you now, I mean, as an archbishop, and we were talking a little bit about, obviously vocations, and then talking a little bit about divine renovation and seeing some of the shifts that have happened in the church. And
yes,
we're going to talk we're going to talk about Catholic schools as well. How do you help faithful Catholics, right, of maybe the background, era, generation, where they had an experience like yours, are like, well, I don't know, I've just always been Catholic. And I mean,
Right.
I love the Lord, but I'm not used to thinking in those categories. How do you help explain, to Catholics, no, it's okay to talk about Jesus?
I think it's a slow process. It's been a slow process for me to what can I say it, acquire new vocabulary to describe experience.
Sure.
And I think it's just that the language and the expressions are increasingly simply in that vein. A lot of it, we use the term, we use personal relationship. We also use friendship.
Yeah.
The Pope Benedict was very fond, of course, of John 15:15. And that, I think, just by sort of repeated use, it's the language that we use when we have conferences on our website.
Mm-hmm.
Increasingly, priests just use it. It becomes natural. And also that when it comes up with members, say a Knights of Columbus council or something, or what we have, the Catholic Women's League,
Yeah.
when somebody, if they're giving a talk and someone will express that they don't really know what that means, you try to unearth for them that, in fact, often of their devotional life and their prayers, that's really what they were doing. And this is in some ways naming an experience that a devout practicing Catholic has in fact had.
Yes.
But they haven't used the nomenclature that is more common.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And they get used to it. When they go, when we have in Canada, Focus is called Catholic Christian Outreach.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Missionaries it's just exactly the same thing. Missionaries, college campuses, raise your own money, have a dinner, invite all people to support you. And of course, their testimonies are loaded with new vocab. Mm-hmm. The people there are older because they have the dough to support them. They warm to that and they like it.
Yeah.
And I think they bit by bit probably can identify with it. I think it's becoming now that it's not so foreign.
Yeah, I love the way you express that. It's not that it is that different of an experience. It's the expression. But yes. I've noticed, having worked in collegiate ministry myself for so many years, noticing the commonality between sometimes these young people who've fallen in love with their faith, many who have maybe rediscovered a devotion like the Rosary, right. And they find themselves like, man, I think I have more in common with grandma than most of my peers or anyone else because I love the Rosary too. And and there may be a slight difference in vocabulary, but in essence, the love of the Lord and the experience is the same.
I think that of course transcends. I mean, it would be preposterous to think that all of a sudden people have discovered the importance of life, in union with God. I mean, we used other terms,
right,
to describe this. Union was was a major, the soul's union,
right?
With, that kind of. It's a different language, and it all is trying to express something that is really stupendous and almost inexpressible. And one language, I think personalistic language does work today. It's today's way of doing things. Whether in 200 years we'll be using the same language, I don't know.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. So much of your, again, right, your day job, you're the Archbishop of Vancouver, but you have served as the secretary for the Congregation of Catholic Education for the Vatican. You've been involved in education all your life.
Right.
If you can, give us just a little bit. So much has changed in Catholic education here in the United States and Canada. Can you give us some background to the current situation of our Catholic schools? Just kind of bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah, I think, of course, Catholic schools, it depends where you are. And I suspect in the States, it depends a lot. I'll just say a brief thing about Canada and then move to the States. In Canada, education is a provincial responsibility. There are 3 provinces where there is complete state money for Catholic education. They have systems which are called separate school systems, 100% supported by public monies, with public school boards. I think the Catholic school system of metropolitan Vancouver, I think, is the largest in the world.
Wow! So it is a Catholic system, but it state funds.
State funds, and with Catholic boards, so they're not parochial and they're not directly under the bishop.
Right.
This has presented in recent years enormous problems about assuring the Catholic mission of the schools.
Yeah.
Because to get on the board, you just need a baptismal certificate. That's all the government can require. They can't go into practice, and they don't want to do that.
Right.
So they have all the money they need, and they struggle with ensuring the Catholic identity of teachers, Catholicity clauses in contracts. Those are all very difficult. The measure of Catholicity depends very much on the local school board. So in a rural area and stuff, there'd be great relations with the bishop and so on. You move into some larger areas,
sure,
there are tensions. There are a few provinces now that have no Catholic schools. None, maybe one private one in the Maritime provinces and the province of Quebec, where 60 years ago, 90% of the schools were Catholic and run by religious.
Wow.
In British Columbia, we have a kind of mixed model. We have all independent schools, so not just Catholic, receive 50% of the operational government funding provided for that school district.
Wow.
But we own our schools and have to build our schools.
Sure.
So in Vancouver, we have 52 schools, 42 elementary and 10 secondaries. But we are free to have Catholicity clauses and so on. We can hire and let go, I guess, to make it rhyme, hire and fire.
Sure.
According to the clause is very clear that a person has to be a practicing Catholic in line with the church. You can imagine it's usually on hiring, it's usually marriage issues that present a difficulty, but we can say until there's an annulment or something, you can't teach in our schools. That's, but we struggle for money because to build a new school now is enormously expensive, particularly, although the high schools are regional, several parishes are responsible. An elementary school, a new elementary school, we just built a double-stream one, it was $25 million. The only reason it could be built was that the parish had some excess land that it could sell. And Vancouver, of course, has land here among the highest in the world. If you don't have that, that's too much. We're worried. We're worried that individual parishes, particularly since we're confronted with a seismic upgrade our schools. We're in a zone,
right, for actual earthquakes. So
yes,
it's a little bit more expensive construction.
A lot more. So, but our schools, we're able to maintain a very strong Catholicity of our schools, and anything that we don't do is just on us.
Sure.
Whereas in some places that you can say, well, the province just won't let us do it. You, in a sense, you can blame outside authorities.
Sure. This is a fascinating conversation because, I mean, in, so much in the United States, I'm sure you're aware, there's this major effort to try and secure some sort of state funding, either in the form of a voucher or a tax credit or, direct scholarships to families. There's been all sorts of creative efforts. It's interesting is to hear then, you talk about the Canadian system where there is government involvement. It's not necessarily a panacea. Helpful, but not always.
Not always. And when I first came, because I grew up in Ontario, where when I was growing up, it was like high school was not full funding, it was partial funding, but eventually they fought and got the whole thing. And so when I came to Vancouver, I thought, well, maybe we should really work in getting full funding. And I was told in pretty short order, look around what happens when the government becomes too involved. They're not going to fund without control. So just leave it as it is, where your independence is assured. So anything that happens in the States, any model would have to be very carefully, but nobody in the States talks about full funding of Catholic schools. It's always partial, but it comes with a cost. You mess with governments, they have their own agenda.
Yes.
You have to be careful.
Talk to us a little bit about kind of the American system, because you begin your book, which I should say that the book is The Holy See's Teaching on Catholic Schools. You begin your book just with a quick overview of the kind of the state of things of Catholic education in the United States.
Right.
If you would just give us a quick overview, because that is so eye-opening.
Right. Well, I think one of it, of course, is the decrease in the number of students has decreased enormously. And even not just the absolute numbers compared to the early 1960s, but the percentage of Catholic children. As the Catholic population has grown, it hasn't kept pace. Because of the expense, unfortunately, so many of the Catholic schools have closed that are in inner city that serve the poor and the marginalized.
Yeah.
Precisely the group that the present Holy Father is kind of directing our attention to, and which we used to be able to serve, is now the one, although there's the desire, funding in many places is extraordinarily difficult. Another major shift, of course, is that religious, and in some places even priests, were a large presence and the carriers of the Catholic tradition in a school. And very few schools had all religious or anything. There were always, lay people who worked sacrificially.
Yeah.
But the religious were able to embody the school's sort of unwritten Catholicity just as part of a Catholic culture.
Yeah.
And that's gone. Religious, for the most part, do not dominate in any sense the school system. And that's made I think it's made a significant difference, so that keeping the schools Catholic is now has to be much more intentional.
Right. Well, it was a loss on two fronts, right? It was financially a loss, what you pay a community of, let's say, women religious versus what you need to
pay a lay person, to be fair, is enormous.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference in justice and what is required. And then the faith formation as missionaries or educators, there was just a different formation that came with those who were religious.
Yes, it was. I think it was just automatic with the religious. After all, their whole life is novitiate onwards is very different from a 23-year-old person who's coming out of a state school of education, even if they're practicing Catholic.
Yeah,
probably does not at all have the same initial and ongoing, frankly, daily formation that would have been normal for a religious teaching in a Catholic school. And when that rug is pulled out, you couple it with the decline in basic catechesis in the 1970s and 1980s, multiple reasons, that even the young pious Catholics, or large numbers, were not really well formed, even if they themselves. So that it was a lot of factors came together, and
it was a perfect storm. Yeah,
it was a perfect storm. And so many schools closed.
Yeah, I mean, some of the numbers you share. I mean, since 1965, 5.5 million students. Now today, almost half that, right? 2.5 million students.
Right.
And I think you point out that losing those students in the context of tremendous population growth, and even more, the losses were in rural and intercity schools where we were able to serve the underprivileged.
Exactly. That's a sad kind of commentary, really, because 50 or 60 years ago, we were able to serve, now we use the term, those on the periphery or the marginalized.
Yeah.
Better than we do today.
Right. So there's I think a vision that is subtly present and maybe a hopefulness in your book, that there is something about the rediscovery of a school's Catholic identity.
Yes.
That not overnight, not as a magic silver bullet, but begins to kind of restore what has been lost. And I mean, I would say, just from as a parent, sending children to Catholic schools, it's beautiful to see what happens when schools rediscover their Catholic identity. How it also seems to address some of the financial and enrollment issues as well.
Yeah, no, I think that is true. I think where a school has really kind of caught on fire and become intentional about its Catholic mission, I think that in some ways those schools are probably more deeply Catholic, more intentionally Catholic than some schools that were certainly culturally Catholic 60 years ago. So I think I think it's just like that in the general population, that those who are attending Mass tend to be more engaged than a lot of them were 50 or 60 years ago, because they wouldn't have fallen off. It's like Quebec, which I know, which once had 85% of the people were at Mass on Sunday.
Yeah.
But when it fell off, it fell very quickly.
Yeah.
And you can't help but ask the question, just how deep was the evangelization if you can slough it off in a 10-year period,
Wow. And I just want to make sure everybody catches that, like Quebec is a city, French Quebec, such a deeply Catholic culture and city. 85% of the people are going to Mass. And within less than a generation, 10 years, it goes away. And you have to ask us, like, well, gosh, what was really going on even when the pews were full?
Well, exactly. And I think that's something in some way we'll never really know, but we can look at the swiftness of the decline. It's also true now. I mean, and if one compares, God bless them, the Irish, within a generation, what's happened?
Yes. Yeah.
How did that happen so quickly?
Yeah, the legalized abortion in Ireland. And
yes, exactly. It's the forces of secularization, but that's just to attribute sort of an external push to an internal space that might not have been very strong, because it couldn't resist.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, schools are part of the answer.
They sure are. There's nothing like it.
Let's dive in a little bit, because again, our lives have been changed by Catholic schools. You start off by talking about the importance of shared responsibility with parents.
Yes. Give
us the picture. What does it look like in practice?
Okay. I mean, I think, we all know the basic Catholic facts. Parents as primary educators of their children. No buts, ifs, or ands. It's not the state. It's not the parish. It's not the school. It's not father. It's the parents, that they have that responsibility and a right.
Right. And all the data backs up the theology.
Yeah, it sure does.
Now, if a parent is practicing, very high likelihood.
Oh, well, we know that. And, particularly, this already, I bet, Jim, it's particularly the father.
Yes.
It's the practice of the father. Although in our mind, we put it on the mother, we know it's the exam statistically across faiths and across cultures. It's the practice of the father is far more determinative of the practice of both boy and girl children than that of the mother.
Yeah, I love it when statistics reinforce theology.
Right, that we do. Now, I think certainly in a system which is in the States, which is where the schools are parochial, they're basically parish-based. This is a tremendous advantage. It's also the way ours are in Vancouver, because of the smallness and the community within which the school is located, that it naturally allows for parental involvement in appropriate ways, which is not possible when you start dealing with very large bodies. Like you probably have a diocesan school board as well, but it doesn't deal directly with children so much. It's more policy and wider. And public schools, they don't come from natural communities in the same way that Catholic schools with parents.
Say more about that.
There's a parish community, which is from where most of the parents of our children come.
Yeah.
And although we also know that they're not all as practicing as they should be, the parents, some parents send their kids to Catholic schools, maybe to give them something that they feel they've lost for a number of reasons. But nonetheless, there's a commonality. And I think it allows for appropriate parental involvement through usually some kind of, in a structured way, within a school community. And they're usually smaller.
Yeah.
Many of our schools there's just one of each grade. So they're 240 kids, some are 440. Very few, no elementary school is over 450.
Sure. Yeah.
Whereas you start getting into the state schools, and they're these huge things, and their high schools have 3,000 and 4,000 people. Our high schools have 500 or 600 or 700 or 800. It's a different magnitude, and I think the community we We should rejoice in the community basis of a parish school.
Yeah. It's like there's a natural community
There is.
or a pre-existing community.
Pre-existing, yeah.
And it helps support and enrich the school.
It does. And we'd like to talk about, I mean, there's we have some places where they talk about the parish and the school.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll even use, there's three tripods: parish, family, and school, support one another. But it's not, the school and the parish shouldn't be seen as distinct entities. They're two buildings always. There's a church building and the school is beside it or across the parking lot. But the school is more integral. But we do use the language of parish and school. And I don't know how to get around that. In a few places, the school community is, well, they're not opposed to the parish, but they're too distinct. They're too distinct.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I think many of us here, whether it be as a parent or a pastor, a school leader or a parish leader, have recognized that we're like, well, how did this happen? There's this gap between the school community and the parish community. They are essentially, usually, sometimes not, but mostly legally and financially, they're the same.
Yes, yeah. Here they are. I mean, the school is the property of the parish.
How do parishes and schools heal that gap? How do they begin to work more intentionally to build up the church, create communities with a missionary identity together?
I think one of the ways that they do it is they try to get the kids far more involved in parish life. What used to be very common were children's choirs, all kinds of activities where they feed into the parish directly. Mm-hmm. We also have what's called parish participation hours. Every family has to give 40 hours of service as the parish education committee dictates. They have somebody who, they're on school patrol, all of that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Now some parishes are saying, parish participation hours should also be for activities so-called in the church or in the parish, not just supporting the school.
It's a way to integrate those, we call them volunteer hours, but integrate the two.
Integrate the two and try to find a language which is not parish and school, that the school is subsumed under the ecclesial reality that we call a parish. That we don't have figured out yet. There's not a common vocab. There's just the corrective.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I mean, it's a common mission.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's we're one community. Sometimes they'll use the St. Mark's community, the St. Mark's Catholic community, which I don't tend not to like so much. But then on the other hand, it allows for the worship, or the church building and the school building are both part of this larger ecclesial entity. Whatever community seems a little weak, but I don't have an alternative nomenclature.
But I appreciate your highlighting that the language itself sometimes reveals the divide that sometimes has crept in there. You talk about, I mean, I think we can say, okay, there's a unity of mission, even if the expression children versus adults is different. You have in your book a whole chapter on each of what you call the essential marks of a Catholic school. Can you just kind of run through those? Give us a little bit of what those essential marks are.
Right. Yeah. I came up with, I use the term marks because we're used to 4 marks of the church, and I just put some material together under certain headings. The first was inspired by a supernatural vision, which really is like all Catholic activities. It's like basically it's the saint making. That this has to come. We're inspired by the gospel. This is, and the school, I think I'd even be a little clearer now, is engaged in the evangelizing mission of the church. Like the parish. That's what the school does. And this is, of course, a vision which is not. It precludes seeing the school as even an elementary school as simply a kind of cog in a functional consumerist kind of way which some people see schools ultimately as job training from learning numeracy and language skills up through on. Second, I think what is real important is it's a little fancy, the founded under Christian anthropology. It's just that our schools have as Catholics, it's one of the great crises of our age. It's founded on a solid understanding of who the person is. In this case, who the little gal or the little guy is for elementary school, or the gangly teenager is for our high school, and that it's founded on I think on what we would traditionally call human nature, which of course is increasingly being battered about and called into question.
Yeah, well, I mean, Christian anthropology, here we are embodied eternal souls in the image of God. That felt like throwaway language 10 years ago.
I was going to say, when I wrote this, now I wouldn't have been worried about gender ideology.
Yeah.
It hadn't occurred to me in 2006 or whenever this was, 2005. But now that's a big deal.
Yeah. Now Christian anthropology is not a given, even sometimes in our Christian institutions.
No, that's very true. And I think this is something that those responsible for a school, whatever, I mean, it's not just the teacher and the pastor, it's that body of people working with both, that they have to be attuned to this, very attuned to what's happening.
Well, I see a relationship between these first two marks, right? The first mark, inspired by our supernatural vision. I love the way you said it. It's not just some sort of cog in the system. The school isn't just trying to educate consumers, right? To the second mark, founded on a Christian anthropology, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make little saints. We're trying to men and women, eventually men and women, but children who are made in the image of God. We're trying to help them become who they're really made to be.
Who they're really made to be,
which is deeper than being a consumer.
You got it. And, we don't let go at all of their destiny. I mean, this is part of the journey to the Father's house.
Yeah. What's the third mark?
With that one, I talked about animated by communion and community. That's really the sense of, I guess more common language is stakeholders. How the stakeholders are to work with a profound sense of unity of purpose and with one another. And that's like from people like me, from the bishop to school boards to parents to teachers, that everybody. I mean, that this is a unified work, and it's a work of the body in which everybody has a place and has to respect. And this is where it gets a little tense. I mean, I have to be careful not just to intervene inappropriately in school boards I'm not entrusted with hiring. I mean, I have a general oversight to see about the Catholicity, but whether it's Joe or Jane, even though I might like Jane better than Joe and they want Joe, I've got to opt out of that.
Right. You show respect for the local leaders'
indeed
discretion and wisdom in their hiring
at every level that needs to be done. What we call parish education committees, or they're the group that really work. They have to respect the role of the principal. Principal has to kind of also know who the teachers are. All of these things, parents, what's appropriate for where there are school rules. It's a way of staying in the appropriate lane.
Yeah. I don't remember if you use this metaphor, but as you speak, my mind is drawn back to, St. Paul's, many parts, one body.
Exactly. We're not all eyes, ears,
Yeah, and it all works together. And there is an irreplaceable role for parents, and there's an irreplaceable role for the teachers and the volunteers and the principals and the pastor. And if we can work in harmony, we can do something really beautiful.
Yes, exactly. And that's where there's often a bit of a rub. And I don't know whether we can kind of remove that totally when a parent feels that their child is not getting the appropriate attention if there's special needs. And those are things where we run the most, where parents kind of, well, you can see they're defending their child and their rights, but where there's friction, where somebody says, no,
sure,
you see the needs of your child, I have to think of the other 25 kids in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. Those are always going to be where things have to be talked through.
Well, and you could
inevitable the tensions.
Well, and you can see how the parish's responsibility to form parents as mature, prayerful, virtuous. I'm thinking of the virtue of patience in this case.
Yeah.
Christian adults. Things go a lot better with the school when parents have a sense of reverence for roles and responsibilities, and vice versa. When faculty have a reverence for the unique responsibility of parents. I mean, I don't know how it was in Canada, but when we went through COVID and questions of masking and distance, sadly it revealed some places where not all of us were behaving very well there. Right. Some of us were overcome by fear, and that's understandable. But boy, some of the unity which we would have hoped would have been there, it was clearly strained and maybe revealed room for growth. We'll just say it that way.
That's a very nice way of saying it. One of the areas that I think we're kind of think about education is our so-called parish education committees, which might be, I don't know what they're called in the parish, but it's the parents with the teacher and the pastor when they meet, is to kind of remind them that they have an oversight of the Catholic identity of the school, not just for fundraising and so on.
Right.
And that's we've had to work on that, because they would just as soon say father or the principal takes care of all that. But if it's a Catholic school, that group has responsibility for some oversight. It can't simply be outsourced to anybody else. And that's right. That's harder for them to understand. And
yeah, well, I mean, I would imagine, I don't know if it's exactly equivalent to the committees you're talking about, but I think of the school boards here, that's what we typically call them. Your job isn't just to raise money for the school and make sure we've got, up to date, gym equipment,
exactly,
nice uniforms. That almost goes. So we've got three down so far. The inspired by our supernatural vision, founded on Christian anthropology, animated by communion and community. It seems like we're already kind of naturally talking about that fourth mark, imbued with Catholic worldview through the curriculum.
Right.
I just want to start by reading a quote here that you put. It's on page 47 in the book. You're quoting John Paul II here. And it's always fun, right? When you get a quote from a pope, now a saint, that starts with a phrase like "the greatest challenge."
Yes,
it's like
setting you up.
Yeah, it's something to perk everybody's ears. So, all right, this is John Paul II from Veritatis Splendor, the Splendor of Truth. He says, "The greatest challenge to Catholic education in the United States today, and the greatest contribution that authentic Catholic education can make to American culture, is to restore to that culture the conviction that human beings can grasp the truth of things. And in grasping that truth, they can know their duties to God, to themselves, and to their neighbors." Wow. Break that down a little bit for us as you talk about this fourth mark. Catholic schools should be imbued with a Catholic worldview through the curriculum.
Yeah, I think, the quote that you read from St. John Paul is one that's repeated, of course, in particularly also in Benedict. It's the importance of truth, not just religious truth, but truth, that and the value of human reason, because nowadays there are even those who dispute reason as being useful for human flourishing. Now, a Catholic worldview throughout the curriculum is based on, the Catholic worldview is based very, very strongly on the notion of the harmony between faith and reason.
Yeah.
Because a Catholic worldview is a way of looking at the world, obviously through the eyes of the gospel, and with everything that is naturally revealed and supernaturally revealed. And this means curricularly that the mark of a Catholic school is not at all confined to its religious education program or its use of symbols or celebration of Mass.
Yeah.
A Catholic worldview is everything. It's the way we look at the world, the way we look at truth, the way we look at reason, the way we look at beauty. And this means that it's throughout the curriculum, that everybody is, there's such a thing as the Catholic intellectual tradition.
Yeah.
And even particularly in high schools, but even to a more limited extent, obviously in elementary school, that this is something that our teachers should be familiar with, and that they know how to make connections, not just pious when they're learning arithmetic. It's not about putting how many hosts would you put in if you have 50 hosts and this one at 75, and it's not that. It's that people can see the wider picture. And a lot of our teachers have not, frankly, been formed in that.
Right.
And so that's a big challenge.
Yeah, there is. I mean, increasingly, I think many of us are those of us who are not professional philosophers, or maybe, haven't been theologians, only now we're beginning to recognize at a very practical level, gosh, there's a difference in the way we think as Catholics,
Yes,
or at least there
precisely.
should be, the way we view the world. And I just can't help but think I'm grateful for some of the teachers my children have had, where I just think of like Gregory Mendel.
Mm-hmm.
For those, a Benedictine. Actually, he is but a scientist. He was the one, right? For the listeners who remember, he's the one who was experimenting with the pea plants. And some had yellow flowers and some had white flowers. He's a monk and a scientist, and in many ways laid the foundation for a lot of modern genetics. And he had to stop experimenting with peas because he was elected abbot, and he had other responsibilities. That should not be an odd, funny anecdote, but it often is, because in our own mind, there's been this subtle expectation that to be a scientist is to be a person of the world and not to be a person of faith. And in fact, the best scientists, the best people of faith are open to the natural world and science, and vice versa. That faith, far from stilting that, accelerates it and brings it to a perfection. So I love that worldview.
No, I think that's absolutely true. It's those are things we have to be, I think, increasingly aware of, so that we don't. Otherwise, what we're doing is isolating religion from the ordinary experiences of life, and we're setting up Sunday Catholics, basically.
Yeah,
who
it's just one day a week.
Pious, but there's a lot of their life that just, they're not opposed, but they think that has nothing to do with their faith. Right.
Well, this is Jesus's parable. Like we're supposed to be the salt of the earth, and we've kind of lost our flavor. Mm-hmm. When we can, when we're only salty one day a week, 1 hour a week, there's this vision that the Lord has for us, and that you describe as this Catholic worldview, that the way our curriculum forms us should prepare us to, in business and science and social work and on, our faith should be, I'm going to say this, but it sounds like a dangerous word, infecting all of the life.
Yes, it should be
around us.
Yeah, it should be the integrating principle.
Yeah.
And not just brought in from the outside. I think that's really true. Because we don't want faith and culture. I mean, the society works to divide them and pushes faith farther and farther away into the private realm, which is the Sunday realm, or reduces faith to devotion.
Bring us home here. I feel like this fifth mark of being, a mark of essential mark of a Catholic school, almost feels a little bit like a pinnacle. Talk to us about this mark sustained by gospel witness.
Yeah, I think here it's to return kind of to the persons involved in a Catholic school, and this I have sort of mainly my eye on those who are the educators, the teachers, and the educational assistants.
Sure,
that teaching is not just a cold profession, particularly in a Catholic school. the teacher must certainly be a professional and know subject matter and pedagogy. But they're also called to be a witness to Jesus Christ, to be a witness to the gospel, that students recognize, because children particularly, they can smell out hypocrisy pretty well. And if
Yes.
somebody is kind of proposing things and so on, and they're not doing them, or they're not living it, you've really introduced a rupture into the system.
Mhm.
And this is why I think that the Catholic schools have to insist that those who are with the children are to the best of their ability. They're not perfect. I know that these are still Catholics who are going to confession and so on,
Hmm.
but that they are serious about the faith, and they see it as essential to their profession, that they want to reflect Jesus Christ in their own lives and bring him to others in the ways it's different for a first grade or second grade teacher doing first communion from 11th grade teacher doing physics, but that each one sees the importance of the
Mhm.
integrity of their life. And that's where hiring and so on becomes so important. That a Catholic school cannot sustain itself with people, certainly who are opposed to the faith, which can actually sometimes creep into a school,
Sure.
or those who are maybe lukewarm. We want as much
Mhm.
as possible as the market can pull them in
Mhm.
to have Catholics who are teachers who are really interested in being evangelizers.
Right.
They might not use that language, but that's what they're
Yeah.
about. That they're true disciples. They're intentional. In other words, that they're intentional disciples.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And I'd add, when they come to teach, to be a part of the community, wherever they come to us at in their own faith journey, can we help them grow and mature? I mean, I'll give a little shout out.
Yeah, no, we have
Yeah.
to, for sure, because they often don't come with it. They come with goodwill, but frankly, less formation or not knowing.
Yeah. I'll give a shout out. I mean, our own, Archbishop Lucas here in Omaha, big proponent of Catholic education, and has very seriously invested with the Evangelium Institute, a local organization. And so our Catholic educators, grade school and high school alike, do in-service days where they are learning about their faith in, I'll say, because I used to be an adjunct teacher, so I was having fun, but so I would say, but in a fun communal environment. But they get a chance to pray together. They get a chance to study the faith at an adult level for them as disciples, with the confidence that it will overflow out of their life in the classroom, and that is a gift we can offer to those, because they're often our sacrifices. We're going to offer that gift. We will help you grow as a disciple as you teach in this community.
We try to do some of that. I'm not sure if it's as well developed as you have. What do you have, Evangelium or?
Yeah, it's called the Evangelium Institute. There's also an organization called School of Faith, which is out of Kansas City, which does something very similar.
Yeah, because we offer something called Foundations for the Faith. We have a faith development day at the beginning of the year where all 1,300 of them come together in a big,
beautiful
auditorium, and we usually get folks from the States to come in because and do some. And we're offering now some 3 courses at the local Catholic college to get a degree in Catholic school administration or something.
Nice.
We can touch the new teachers, but there's that middle people who've been in it for 15 years and 16 years, 20 years, that kind of know the system, and they're there and they're good, but they're probably, a lot of them are not really on fire. That's the contingent that is. I'd love to find a way to stimulate them a little more.
Right. Well, it sounds like I hear a pastor's heart. How do you take the faithful who are there and stir their hearts into flame?
Yeah, exactly. With particularly becomes when it's a little dicier when it's linked to employment. You have to be a little
right. Yeah, our time has just flown. I just want to. In
Okay.
closing, I want to give you an opportunity. At the end of your book and the conclusion, you offer a really just a fun, I would say, slightly provocative idea. So what if Catholic schools, educators, the boards, the principals, parent groups, what if we would do some sort of Catholic accreditation process, like the self-assessment, which is so beautiful in the culture of education, to say, what if we were to assess how faithfully we're living our Catholic identity? I'm curious, like, tell us what would that look like?
Okay, that proposal is actually being taken up now. I don't know whether you know about there's been the foundation of at Catholic University of America called the Institute for the Transformation of Catholic Education, ITCE.
I am not familiar with it.
Okay, it was just founded about a year ago. The founding CEO or head of it was Sister Agnes Greifendorf, a Nashville Dominican sister. She's stepped aside now, and they have somebody else, but they are working very seriously, precisely on putting together the criteria for accreditation. If you go on their website, it's under ITCE. You'll see the beginnings of what's happening. That it's one of their main charges.
That's
and in fact, that little lecture that led to the pamphlet was at Catholic U. It was sponsored by Frank Hanna from. He's a Catholic philanthropist from Atlanta, and he's also kind of behind this. He's been a big supporter of this new institute at Catholic U. So it looks like this might actually bear fruit in the not too distant future.
Wow. Well, we will definitely link to that in the show notes for our educators and parents and board members who would be interested in that. You said the ITCE.
Right, the Institute for the Transformation of Catholic Education. It has a lot of, they're developing a lot of great resources that are imaginative and creative on how to transform places where the Catholic education is not wrong, but maybe not exciting enough, not using the best and the riches of the Catholic tradition. It's also linked to those who want to see maybe a more classical education. There's different things. You just look at the site.
Beautiful,
it opens up possibilities.
We'll link to that in the show notes. We'll link to your book, Archbishop J. Michael Miller, The Holy See's Teaching on Catholic Schools. Wonderful, short little volume, but it's very easy to read, but it's packed. There's so much good stuff in there. Archbishop, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a pleasure. All good things to the Catholic schools of the Omaha Archdiocese.
Thank you. Archbishop, we'll be releasing the podcast here for Catholic Schools Week. Would you just do us the honor to close us in a prayer and maybe offer a blessing for parents and students and all of our educators?
I'd be delighted. Thank you. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Good and gracious Father, you who are the source of all light and all truth and all wisdom, we implore your blessing upon the students and the educators, the parents and the parishes of all those who support Catholic schools and their mission of bringing people close to you. May their efforts be ever more creative. May their initiatives be inspired by the Spirit, and may all that they do lead finally to fulfillment in you and in your glory. And this we ask through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
And may Almighty God in his endless mercy bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you, Archbishop.
Take care. God bless.